Hello, and welcome to week 3 of Hybrid American History. This week we're going to take a look at the Cold War. During the course of this lesson, you will take a look at the following learning objectives and make sure that you have clear understanding of them after the PowerPoint presentation is done. Some things to think about before we begin. So, what do you already know about the Cold War? Take into last week's information and discuss the alliances that were present after World War II. And thirdly, how will the aftermath of World War II affect Cold War alliances? Some of the things to keep in mind when World War II ends. First is the Potsdam Conference, where we have the leaders of Winston Churchill, Harry S. Truman, and the leader Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union. Keep in mind, during this time, FDR had passed away during the war. During the Potsdam Conference, they decided to divide Germany into 4 zones. 3 of the zones occupied by democratic nations: Great Britain, France, and the United States. However, the 4th zone will be occupied by the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union will have a different idea as to how they want to break up the land after World War II. The Soviet look at land expansion. Meanwhile, the French and British and Americans decide that they should not advance territory. Japan in the Pacific Theater adopts a constitution. This constitution will be democratic, where they will open a free market economic system. They will also break up zabatsas, which are monopolies on the economy, thus creating a more diverse economy where you'll have many representatives of the Japanese population. At the end of World War II, they also execute the Premier of Japan, Hideki Tojo, as well as 6 other members, and the rest are in prison. As for the European casualties, they enforce the Nuremberg trials. The Nuremberg trials will again accuse the Nazi of the vast atrocities committed after World War II and punish nearly 20 people for the atrocities, again, unknowing the whereabouts of Adolf Hitler. In 1945, the United Nations is formed. This supranationalist organization is formed to enforce military and political problems found throughout the world. They also create the nation of Israel. This state is first introduced as a partition plan, dividing both Israel and Palestine, giving Palestine to the Arabs and Israel to the Jews. However, Palestinians vehemently reject the plan. Thus, Israel is claimed as the complete territory of Jews, which is outlined here with both colors of orange and yellow. The United Nations is composed of a Security Council and General Assembly. The Security Council has 5 members that never change. 1 is Russia, the other is China, 3rd is Great Britain, 4th is France, and the 5th is the United States. Again, the Security Council will vote on militaristic and political decisions. After Israel claims rights to the entire territory, the Arabs from surrounding nations will attack. Israel will prevail, and the ensuing wars will continue thereafter, even to this day. Some of the things to keep in mind: containment, which is a U.S. policy containing communism. Détente is the warming of relations we'll see within the relationship between Nixon as well as Nikita Khrushchev. We also take a look at the domino theory, comprised by Dwight D. Eisenhower, again, avoiding future countries becoming communism, a trickle-down effect, as we see with Korea and Vietnam. As World War II ends, we see one world, again, unified by both the World Bank and the United Nations, very diverse, specifically along the lines of communist ideology and democratic ideology. We also see free exchange amongst the democratic nations under the economic system of free market. And we also see much of the world embodying the United Nations. And we see the emergence of 2 superpowers, of the United States and Soviet Union. Tensions arise, different philosophies of communism and democracy, and the U.S. again wanted self-determination, in other words, the nations to decide for themselves whether or not they want to be sovereign. And USSR wanted to reclaim land that was once a part of Imperial Russia, thus creating a buffer known as the Iron Curtain. We will see again Germany divided between democracy and communism. Again, communism will be found in the East, where democracy will be found in the West, and we will see in 1948 the construction of a Berlin Wall, as seen right here. Again, dividing both East and West, a clear division, dividing many families of German ancestry. We also see in 1948 and 49, the Allied forces, led by the Americans, bring in relief for people in need of food and other basic needs in Berlin. However, the USSR complained and obviously took great offense to these acts, thus intensifying the Cold War. Again, the wall will symbolize the Cold War. Western Europe will rebuild through the Marshall Plan, which is money allocated by the United States. However, this plan is offered to both East and West, but only Western Europe accepts this plan. We also see the formation of NATO, which is going to be a Navy alliance, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which will then provide control of Navy in the seas, thus maintaining peace. On the other hand, Eastern European countries side with the Soviets. They joined the Warsaw Pact. Again, that's an economic package offered by the Soviet Union to rebuild Eastern European countries, thus creating an alliance with the Soviet Union, dividing both East and West. And again, that will be the buffer zone. Soviet invades Hungary. Again, we see them building of the Iron Curtain and rebellions in Greece. And again, Truman Doctrine will be established, and we will see indirect confrontation, which will be really the first act of the Cold War. Keep in mind, Cold War is different than a hot war. Cold War, there is not military force or physical aggression. And we see increased tension, we'll see an arms race, and we'll also see a satellite race. We'll see a brief thaw in 1959, again the meeting between Nixon and Nikita Khrushchev. They will reduce nuclear buildup. However, a year later, a U-2 incident happens where the Soviets shoot down a U.S. spy plane over Russia, thus ending the reduction of arms and increasing the buildup of arms. We see competition again, stockpiling of nuclear weapons, and we see both sides acknowledging the destruction of the nuclear arms. At home, we see House of Un-American Activities Committee, again targeting people in Hollywood, such as the Hollywood 10, accusing them of practicing communist ideologies in the media. We'll see the National Security Council, again overseeing any spread of communism on the home front. We'll see several cases such as Alger Hiss, who is accused he's a state senator accused of being communist. And we'll also see the Rosenberg trials, which will put two innocent people to death being accused of communism. We'll see Joseph McCarthy, the senator out of Wisconsin, now accusing political figures of practicing communist ideology, thus seeing the second Red Scare, where now we see not just immigrants, what we saw in the first Red Scare, but now we see average Americans, especially even politicians. We also see the construction of bomb shelters, and we also see the launching of the Soviet satellite Sputnik in '57, and then Americans will respond a year later with the Explorer sent. Thawing will happen for two main reasons. Again, we'll learn later in this trimester of Reagan's policy of increasing spending on nuclear arms, thus impacting the economic bankruptcy of the Soviet Union. We'll also see the impact of popular culture, and we'll also see policy changes on the Soviet front, led by Gorbachev and the ideas of perestroika and glasnost. The Korean War will also happen. Again, this takes place in 1951. We see the fear of the spread of communism. Now it is spreading to all of Asia and Europe. And when we look at the spread on the Korean Peninsula, we also see it spreading from the north on the Vietnam Peninsula. The Korean War. The United Nations intervenes. However, a weakness of the United Nations is they don't have a national military. Thus, most of the backing of military force will be the U.S. in the Korean War. The Korean War will ensue until 1953, where they agree on an armistice line that will divide the North communism from the Southern communism, thus creating a demilitarized zone where it's just an ongoing war where a peace agreement has been reached. Again, we will see many results to this, one of which is the U.S. will have permanent occupancy of troops in South Korea. We'll also see the North being funded by the Soviet Union, and again, fear of increase of nuclear buildup. For this week's assignment, you will work in pairs. You will use these notes as well as pages 838 to 843 in your text, and you will create a graphic organizer, either a flowchart, a T-chart, a circle map, or any other type of mind map that explains cause and effect. You may do this with a partner, and again, this could be submitted via Google Docs or as a hard copy. Please see the examples and see me if you have questions. And again, review the learning objectives for the week and make sure that you have clear understanding of each of them.